I'm Daz. This is a Bush TR82C. Yes, you've seen me work on one of these before. That was my one. This belongs to a colleague. This one appears to be a different colour. We're missing the bright. Usual thing, off-on tone, volume, medium, long wave. Can't see an aerial socket yet. What was it on the back, I think, wasn't it? Carefully here. Yep, it's got the car aerial socket. Apparently this used to belong to my colleague's granny, so that would probably be about right. I guess it's about 63 like the other one. Let's have a look inside. Well, there's a little bit of melting there. I don't know if Granny's put it too close to the cooker. So here's the inside of this one. Well, it's a bit different to mine. I'm seeing OC45s here rather than AF117s. So that's positive in a way, I guess. So perhaps this is an even earlier version. It's strange how they all vary. Well, battery's got 399 on it. 0402, I think. So that's this century, I guess. So it may have been used and still be functional. Let's stick some power on. Indeed, someone has got the date on there, 24502. A dated battery, that's cool. That's an ever ready with the circuitry on it. Well, circuit track, should I say. So quite a modern one. I'm just going to bring it up very gradually on my power supply with current limiting in place, just so that if anything is untoward. I'm already hearing some noise. Oh well, there you go.
Around the top of his head, so it's obviously a cut.
Well, that's working, as most of these seem to. Even mine did, even though I had tin whisker problems later on. Well, that came off quite easily with my fingers. No struggle with that one. So pull that out. Just get the screws out the back now and have a look at the underside of the chassis. Well, that's unfortunate. Here's the 4 brackets. This one I assume fell off there. That one was already missing, so maybe the radio's been dropped at some point. Speaker looks fairly similar. Yep, waxies again. No more than I'd expect, I guess, looking at my other one. The rotary switch looks fairly corroded. Plesley capacitors as before. Electrolytic down there. Yep, looks very, very similar to my chassis apart from the transistors. Again, oh yeah, they've gone hard. The 4 grommets, 3 grommets should I say, on the tuning capacitor. Looks like these brackets have broken on that side, and on this one underside the bits of plastic have gone. I wonder if a washer will fix that. I'm thinking a washer and maybe some epoxy resin. So a few case repairs. Do the best I can. Obviously I can't replace the bits that's gone missing. So let's just have a quick look at my own video of the other unit that belongs to me. One thing I noticed, this says A177, mine says A345. I've had a look at the date of this capacitor. This one is October 1959, so this must be a really early version of the Bush. So they certainly made it for a while. So it's OC44 for the converter, OC45 times 2 for the IF, OC71 audio driver, OC78D driver, and OC78 output, which sounds similar to mine. The biasing looks different, and I can't see that 4.7 ohm resistor in the emitter. The driver transformer looks different as well. Doesn't quite look the same. I'm sure there was another capacitor here, so yeah. Obviously these things change over time, and perhaps they did away with components they didn't need, etc. Because this one looks more complex underneath. Okay, I've popped the speaker off so we can just have a look at the chassis underneath, just so I can compare it with my my set. Very large coupling capacitor. I think that's for the driver. I think that's the emitter decoupling. There's a 330 ohm resistor across it, and yeah, October 59 again. Yeah, a lot of 0.04 microfarad waxies again. Most of them are 0.04. I think I can see a 0.02 in there. I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to do a restuffing job again, or I might just restuff the components on the other side, as this isn't my set, just for looks. But yeah, there we go. There's a shot of what this earlier model looks like. In the video I made of my radio, my TR82C, I was most confused when I looked at the trader sheet 1459, because it was nothing like it. I ended up finding a circuit diagram that belonged to a different Bush radio to find something similar, but this radio actually is more like that trader sheet. Interesting. The transformer has windings in the emitters as the transistors, hence there's no 4.7 ohm resistor in the emitters. They've got a resistance of about 10 ohm, and the actual primary is more like about 2 ohms, so that's interesting. Also, the driver goes down to ground, but you're using 2 resistors and using the resistance of the winding as your bottom resistor, so that's interesting. Of course, you can't adjust it. I've got 12Ks in mine, but it says 9.1 I thought in the diagram, so that's obviously something slightly different. Driver stage is completely different as well. The tone control is across the drive transformer. I can't remember that being in mine. And that massive 500 microfarad underneath the speaker, yes, the emitter resistor for the driver. I can see why, because they're deriving the base voltage of the preamp transistor from the emitter, so it's got to have a fairly big capacitor on, otherwise you'd start getting audio motor boating, which is a bit yuck. So yeah, so this circuit looked very peculiar to me last time, but it looks very familiar on this chassis. So yeah, it was probably cheaper when they did away from the with the transformer with the emitter windings. But what does that remind you of? It I think of my quad 2 amplifier I've got to work on. Presumably these are negative feedback. I can't remember seeing any Zobel network across the speaker, so perhaps that gave better stability of the output stage. But yeah, that's definitely different from my radio that I worked on. Interestingly, that tone correction capacitor on the driver transformer is hidden right underneath here, so there's a Hunt's hiding away there, waiting to get you. So yeah, unusual place. Some other interesting things I didn't talk about in my previous video, and I see there's some neutralisation components here. There's one set, I think the other set, yeah, here it is. Neutralisation, it's because of the capacitance inside the transistor. RF frequencies was quite a bit of a problem in these early transistors, so they had some compensation to stop it bursting into oscillation. Most of these waxies are actually just in the emitter, so it makes you wonder whether you could get away with leaving them there. But you know as well as I do, if I do something, they might deteriorate further and might short. Therefore, that would really make the IF stage unstable. A lot of these resistors have risen a bit, but they're not risen too much so far, what I've found. So inclined to leave them alone. Of course the Plesleys are going to have to go. They're going to have to be replaced, but yeah, it's certainly refreshingly different from my other one. Well, I thought I'd just open up the back of my radio and compare it, and of course it's the same colour. I didn't realise, but yes, the transformers on this earlier one are much physically larger, especially the driver transformer. The variable capacitors here that are used for trimming the front end, they are different. There's just two in here, but I noticed two of these are paralleled. Slightly different resistors. I wondered if this was missing on mine, but it isn't. It's on both of them. It must be some sort of screening between the IF and the RF tuning and oscillator, perhaps to prevent feedback. Of course, these being metal case and the original AF117s, I don't suppose that would have been so much of a problem, but yeah, mine's got a earphone jack as well, which I hadn't noticed before, so that's something a little bit different this one hasn't got. So I just thought it'd be interesting to look at the two. Yes, but front end is different there, isn't it? But the IFs look, oh no, that looks slightly different as well. So yeah, it's just interesting looking at the difference between the two, because obviously this one I can adjust the bias where it's fixed on this one as well. Thankfully I didn't throw the paperwork away, so yeah, that's the difference between the two on the front end of the amplifier, as it were. Not the RF front end. Right, I've got some parts. I just thought they didn't look too much out of place, so I'm going to use these polyester. Are they polyester? Whatever they are, polypropylene or whatever. Plastic film will do. So I'll just going to start replacing the waxes now, and come back later. You can see here I'm starting to replace the milers. I've got 47 nanofarad for the 40s and 22 nanofarad for the 20 nanofarads I'm replacing. I'm trying to put everything exactly where it was before in regard to spacing, or trying to the best I can. It's an IF stage, you don't want to be moving things around too much, you just don't know if it might suddenly decide to oscillate, because there's a lot of gain around here. But they don't look too out of place. I decided not to restuff the capacitors on this one like I did on my previous radio, but quick reality check after doing recapping that it still works, and it does. I haven't bothered restuffing the Plesleys this time, because I thought, well, you can't actually see this side. I'd rather spend my time on seeing if I could restuff the capacitors on the other side, but since I haven't ruined these capacitors completely yet, oh yeah, ESR 10 ohm, that is really quite high. The idea is to decouple the battery supply. I don't think that's going to be a lot of good, is it? To be honest, let's try another one. 14 ohm. Let's try this small TCC one. Okay, admittedly it is a smaller value, but yeah, more than 20 ohms, that's, yeah. Now the ESR on this one, I believe, is still pretty good. That's not bad. Obviously the value's changed either because it's leakage or something else has happened, but yeah, interesting. Just in the process of replacing the rubber grommets on the capacitor. They're normally mounted on grommets, the variable capacitors. The idea is to try and reduce microphony. That's basically the speaker vibrates the tuning capacitor slightly, and it causes a strange type of distortion, so you tend to find rubber mounts on the tuning capacitor to try and isolate it from the main chassis and any sort of bass from the loudspeaker. The grease is quite hard around the tuning capacitor, so I'm just using a little bit of IPA to soften some of it before I relubricate it. But yeah, it's gone very much like treacle. I can see it on the bearings on the other side as well. And the next thing is to give these contacts a clean. I think I'll, rather than just spray it indeterminately, I shall just basically put some in the lid, the deoxide, and just drip it on there and see if it'll take some of this tarnish off. Yeah, a little bit more economical way of doing this. I'm sure there's a better way of getting it out of the lid, but I'll just put some on here. Work it in. I noticed some noise on the tuning capacitor when tuning. Now it's either some plates are rubbing, which I don't think it is, or there's two contacts. I don't know if you can see them clearly, one there and one there, so I'm just going to put a little bit of deoxit on them as well and just work back and forth and just see if we get a better contact now. Might be a little bit too much, but let's soak it up. That feels a bit better. It's really a bit tricky to do this in situ without dropping oil everywhere, but I'm just trying to get some on the rear bearings. That's better. Dab of grease on there. Try not to get it everywhere. I notice there's a pair of felt pads there. I don't especially really want the grease there, but where these two pads are, because I guess what they're there for is to make it have a, well, perhaps a slightly better feel when you push the buttons down. That's what I think. Perhaps somebody else knows better, but that's a bit better. Bit less clunky now. Like last time, in my last video, I just cut round the edge of the capacitor and it just pulls apart, so I'll do the same as I did before and then drill these out and try and stuff a capacitor in it, and then stick the label, which just run away, back on. Well, I've drilled the holes out, the rivets out, and let's pop this replacement in. What I'll do is just glue that on and glue this label on, and there you go. It's not absolutely perfect replacement for it, but it keeps the case of the capacitor still, doesn't it? Well, that's a lot better. ESR 0.3, that's more like what we want. I'm just in the process of drilling out a capacitor here. Nice little mess. I fear that might be a bit too big to go in there, but I'll have a look round, see if I've got something a bit smaller. I think this is slightly different to the capacitor I did on the last one, but I shall see if I can find a bit of a pencil and bung in there, and I shall drill a hole out for the negative lead of the capacitor. I'm using a 6.8 in lieu of the 8 microfarad because I don't have a 10, but it's close enough. The tolerance on these were fairly wide, so I'll use a little bit of rubber off a pencil again and sort of push this in, and then that will complete the restuffing of this one. Obviously a bit of tolerance. There you go, it's spot on, so a bit of luck. Nice low ESR as well, but it's a Vis-A, which was not cheap. Just found a 39 nanofarad that's nice and small. That might go inside that. I don't know how you restuff a Hunts. There we go. Just push the inside out after warming it with my fingers, believe it or not, was a duff. I could really do some more wax to put into this capacitor to make it look more realistic. I've got the Hunts one off here, which is plastic cased. I'm sure it will just pop in half. I'll be making some modifications to the car aerial socket as well. It's unlikely to be used, so I'm going to be using it for something else. But yeah, we're getting there. Fortunately, in my drawer, I've managed to find a mustard capacitor, which is obviously fitted to the later sets, but that'll do. The Hunts, well, I don't think you can really restuff that because the case is just totally fallen apart as you'd expect. You see the paper capacitor in there. On the last video someone asked me how you clean the pots. That's a really good question. On this one there is a gap here that you can squirt in, one assumes. But on this one I can't really see a gap, so I'll have to have a look at that. I have got some of this fader lube now to use, which is probably a little bit more pot friendly. Look at this. Oh, there we go. Well, it's probably gone in. There we go. I was thinking, now I've put this mustard capacitor on here, it's probably doubled the value of the radio. Turns out there is a gap on the tone control as well, so by holding it the right way I was able to get some fader lube in there. I'm just going to put a drop of oil on this bearing here as well. I've taken the ground connection off and slid the transistor out, driver transistor, and now I can actually see the hidden Hunts capacitor under here. It's just one I definitely don't want to leave in because the cases crack and then they absorb moisture, and I think they're worse than wax capacitors in my opinion, but yeah, let's get that changed. So yeah, just replaced with film capacitor. Just had to be careful here because when I look closely I was running rather close to this rivet, so it may have shorted the driver transformer, so it's something to watch out for, I guess. And this won't be very visible once I put this back, so let's see if I've completely destroyed it. Okay, what I wanted to do was give this radio an external input. I haven't spoke to its owner. So what I've done is I've removed the car aerial socket and I've got a jack socket that will go here, and I'm hoping that'll fit through the hole in the back. And then I'm going to fit a screen lead to here and to the volume control, and then when the jack plug's plugged in it'll break the radio circuit. So here's the circuit. So we've got a jack socket, and I've labelled this one red, this one blue, which corresponds to the colours of my cable. So the idea is when there's no jack plug in there, it should just connect through, connect the radio through to the pot as normal. When the jack plug is inserted, it should connect to this one here, blue, and put the signal into the pot, so thus using the amplifier and disconnecting the radio. So I've used red for radio and blue for Bluetooth. So my small simple brain can remember that. Well, my jack socket is one that breaks the ground and also the tip as well. So I've just put the ground just across the two pins, and then I determined that that was blue because I don't know how easy I can get this to show up, but yeah, can you see that pin there is what's contacting the jack, so that's blue to go to the amplifier. And of course when this is pulled out, the contacts close, so it then stay in focus, it then closes. Well, as you can see, I've put the blue wire on the top of the pot after disconnecting the yellow wire, which is now connected to the red wire, so that's our circuit back through the jack plug, and the screen is connected to the bottom connection of the pot, which is ground. Yeah, I think you can see that. So hopefully it doesn't affect the radio operation. I'm just working on my jack plugs here. This is the mono one here, which is wired conventionally. And this is the stereo one. I'm just trying to figure out how to fit these two resistors in, because you can't join the left and right channels from a source these days. They generally do not like it. So I've got a couple of 330 ohm resistors, and I need to attach the centre connection to there. But I need to do it in a way it doesn't short. I'm wondering whether I should have actually cut the pins shorter on the jack plug, but I'll have to think about that. Right, so that's the stereo end, with two 330 ohm resistors, and that shouldn't short out, I hope. A bit tricky that. I wonder if I should have done this a different way, but and that's the mono end which will plug into the radio.
Like
Good, that looks okay. So good. Yep, that works. Not the best path for the cable, but at least it's not going to flap around and get caught in anything, I don't think. That's the car aerial input, which goes to a sort of few turns on here to couple in the signal. Right, well, I suppose I better put the speaker back, and I honestly think I'll call that a day. Sticking up a bit. And see how we get on with the case. At least remember to put line on the speaker so I know how deep it goes. Yes. Just took this apart for a bit of fun to see if I can do something with it. But, yes. Nice big pile of cells. I suppose it's very efficient because it's designed to be the size of the case, so you get the maximum capacity in it. Of course I should be wearing gloves, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cells. Just like a gigantic PP3, I suppose, except it's a PP9. Yeah, interesting. I suppose the main problem to solve here is to make sure that things don't short circuit, because this is obviously a metal can. Okay, so that's taken care of that. I suppose I'll have to glue this in. I can't help thinking I should have left this wire a bit longer, but I need to glue that in because without the battery it will just push out, won't it? So, well, as expected, it didn't quite turn out how I expected, but there we go. So at least it can work. It's a bit rough round here, but I suppose that's the problem using a metal battery. I guess using something like this is a lot better. What's this? Some sort of message, I guess. These are much easier to work on, I guess. I haven't even tried doing one of these yet. But, anyway, it is what it is. But at least it allows the use of AA batteries. Just make sure it's the right way around. I don't want to undo all my work and have to replace all the capacitors and damage transistors. So, yep. Right, let's have a quick tune round.
Smoking itself. John text on 500-51. Just come to any school in Ireland, see the issues with vaping. It absolutely is.
French station. Radio 4 seems very weak today. Medium wave. Caroline.
which England won all 6 1. Toss, they will bowl first.
In recent times, and they're
That's my local. Yeah, this is quite a sensitive set. In fact, I think it's more sensitive than mine. Okay, I've plugged the audio lead in and plugged in one of these Bluetooth battery powered devices. I've just paired it with my phone, so a bit of luck. There we go. Right, well there's another Bush TRC82C. TR82C, yeah, that's right, get it right. Brain not working very well at the moment, not surprising. There's always decisions when working on these radios. You know, I could have left the waxes in. Definitely could have left the electrolytics really, because the ESR was rising and that's going to cause problems like motor boating and loss of frequency response, etc. Also difficult to know whether to restuff components or not, but I've done it on the back and where you mostly change the battery, so that's okay. And trying to restuff a PP9, I think I'm not very good at that, but there you go. Also controversially put in a mod in to allow an audio input. Now, because we're going to start losing medium wave over the next few years here in the UK, it makes sense to perhaps do that sometimes, and removing the aerial input socket is probably about the best way I could have done it without drilling holes in the radio or changing it. So I don't know what you think about that. It's always an issue, isn't it? A lot of people now tend to fit Bluetooth etc to the radio, and just to give it some other use. I just don't know where we're going with the medium wave now. But there we go. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you found that interesting. Obviously it's the second one I worked on. I think the first video is probably better than this one, but this was a different one. And I hope the next video won't be too long, but you never know. Oh yes, well I think about to say hello to Fred if you happen to be watching. That's to do with the previous video I did on this subject. And anyway, I'll see you for next video and say bye for now.